Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today I have another tutorial for you from my latest book, the Panel Quilt Workshop. It has lots of different ideas for how to use panels in your quilting projects. It's not just quilts, although there are several quilting patterns in there. We also have lots of home decor projects, some bags and totes, and lots of really fun things to get creative with those panels that I know you bought for your stash, but now don't know what to do with. In this one, we're going to make a piece table runner and placemat set. From one panel, we're going to be able to make 4 of the placemats and the table runner set. Now, when I designed this, I designed it to have a 10-inch square center. It's a really common size that you can fussy cut panels to. In fact, you can see it in the quilt that my daughter Angela designed for this book. This one, however, I thought it was 10-inch, but when I got it, it turned out that it is taller than it is wide. So even though I've got the right amount here, it just would look weird and I would be cutting things off that I didn't want to do. So if you are able to find one that you can just fussy cut to 10.5 inches, perfect, go for it. If not, if you have something like this and you want to make it work, this is how I'm going to show you how to do it, because a lot of times we get a panel, we love it, it doesn't quite work for the project that we're going to do, but it's pretty close, and there are absolutely a lot of ways to make it work for what you have in mind. Now, obviously, I know that I'm going to get comments on this. The ease of a panel is that you don't have to piece it, right? And that's true, but sometimes it's worth like the little extra step it takes to make it work. And so that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. And if you're just gonna cut a center and go, just go ahead and skip forward in the video. We're gonna put some time codes below so you can head out to the actual assembly process. All right, so when we are quilting, we always have 1/4-inch seam allowances. So that means if we want something to be 10 inches and we're piecing 2 together, then we need to add a 1/4 inch to all sides of what we're going to put together. For example, right here, I can tell that I have 5.5 inches going across the width of this, which is perfect, because if I take 5 inches and add 5 inches, that's 10, right? But when I add a 1/4 inch on the top, bottom, sides, then we are at 5.5 inches, because we're going to add a 1/4 inch to one side and a 1/4 inch to the other, and a 1/4 plus a 1/4 are 1/2 inch. So that works out really well. The width is exactly what I need, and it will be the right size when I put everything together. Quilt math can be confusing, but I promise you it's not that crazy once you get the hang of it. Just take your finished size, add a 1/2 inch to it, you're good. Now, whenever I'm fussy cutting though, I like to be able to view what I'm looking at, because I can see my 5.5 inch line here, but I really want to be able to see it a little better so I know exactly what it is that I'm going to be slicing off. So that's where painter's tape or washi tape, I use Post-it notes in a pinch, they all are really, really helpful. So I'm going to take a slice of painter's tape here, and I'm going to lay it down right over that 5.5 inch mark. And it's okay if you wrap it around the edge. You just don't want it to come off, is really all it is. But you need to be able to see your 5.5 inch clearly, so that way you can trim to it. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. And that has effectively created a window for me so I can preview what's going to actually be in here. One of the things I want to look for here is making sure that the top of my tree star here is underneath that 1/4 inch by a pretty decent amount. Now, if I have it where it's at here, then here's where my 1/4 inch seam is. I'm going to lose some fox butt, and I do have a little bit of room to come down some. So now I kind of get a full bottom of the fox, and it looks like he's anchored on the ground. I can see almost to the bottom of the tree stump, and so, but I still have my star in here. So I think I'm good with that placement. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the side and over for this one. Now I can pull everything away, and I'm going to give everything a 180-degree turn. All right, that's looking pretty good. At this point, I can put, these are the edges that I just trimmed to size. So now I'm going to put that 5.5 inch marking right on the edges of where I need to be. And I really don't have to trim here. I'm going to just in case I get like some scragglers, but really that part's fine. And we're gonna cut this part. And now I have a 5.5 inch piece that I can sew together with 3 other 5.5 inch squares to make a block that is going to be the 10.5 inches we need for the center of our placemat. So now I have my 4 5.5 inch pieces that when I sew together will make a 10.5 inch block that will serve as my center panel. Now I know this was a little extra work, but it's absolutely going to be worth it to have this totally centered and looking great, as opposed to cutting off like a good chunk of my deer antlers and all of this tail. And sometimes, you know, you just have to go for it. You know, the panel you got, you thought it would work, and then you get it and you're just like, oh no, that's not quite what I thought it was going to be. It's taller than it is wide, and you have to pull something like this in order to make it work. At this point, I'm just sewing together a 4-patch. Super simple. We're going to sew our top rows together and press that seam open, and then join our rows and press that seam open. So super simple to get to the next step. So the next steps we're going to do whether you're making a placemat or a table runner, and it's going to start with framing out our center panel. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my skinny strips to my top and bottom of my center panel. If you feel more comfortable pinning this, please feel free to do so. I would pin at the corners and the center. I have done so many of these that I can just eyeball it. What I do is I get it started at the top, and then I take my ends and I will pinch them together once I meet my corners up. And then I just kind of hold it back and give enough tension to keep everything nice and straight as I sew. Once my 2 corners, my end corners come on board so that they're on my sewing machine throat, I just go ahead and I put a finger on the tip of that. Sometimes I hold my hand behind to just make sure everything's going straight through. And then I let that sew all the way down. Now I'm going to go ahead and press my seam open. I press all my seams open. It makes for a really flat and straight block, but that is personal preference. I just get really great results with it, and you don't have to worry about any seams being weakened with the quilting process. I've got about 150 quilts behind me that have all been made like this, and I've never had a problem. To press it open, I just put the tip of my iron straight down the seam, and then I hold my hands down straight ahead of it and go straight ahead and just press that down. Now I do always also press from the right side just to help that lay nice and flat. But I find the combination of the Aliso with the wool pressing mat and the seams open, flattest way ever to get your seams hands down. Now we're going to repeat those same steps to put our frames on the side of our block. At this point, it is getting a little bit longer for me, so even I am going to pin at this step, and just to make sure that everything is good to go. I do pin both sides at one time, that way I can just run them through at the same time frame. To make this as fast as possible for you guys, what I would do is I would get everything to this point where you have assembled your frames and just chain piece all of that and chain press. And then when we get to the next step, that's when it changes a little bit depending on whether you're doing a placemat or a table runner. So when I pin, I like to pin in my seam allowance. Still, of course, making sure that my corners are nice and lined up. And then I'm also going to pin at the center of my block. Now I'm going to press the seams open again. The difference I do here is instead of having my iron straight down the center, I kind of angle it to the side. That way I don't accidentally press any of these other seams going in the wrong direction. We want everything to be nice and flat. Now we're going to give it a press from the right side. Now here's where things get a little different depending on whether you're making a placemat or the table runner. For the placemat, you're going to put the wider strips on both sides of your frames, and that's going to form the outside part where like your silverware is going to go. If you are doing the table runner, you're just going to put it on one side only, and then once you have everything assembled, you're going to add one more to the side that does not have one. So it's a little bit different, but still very easy. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these up and sew them and press them. There we have it. Our placemat is done and ready to be quilted. I think I'm going to do this one really simple for the quilting, just to kind of prove to everyone that you don't always need to go all out. You don't always have to go crazy or nuts. You can have a really fast, really quick pattern that you can whip out, especially if it's holiday or seasonal and you're not going to be using it year round. You don't want to spend hours and hours on it, and especially something like this where food is going to be dropped on it. You want to make sure that it stays nice and quick and really a fun project. I hope you have enjoyed following along with the pieced placemat and table runner, and I would love to see how you guys make this your own with your own panels from your stash. Make sure to tag me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Quilt Addicts Anonymous so I can see everything that you guys are creating. I would love to see that. And don't forget to grab a signed copy of the Panel Quilt Workshop by me, Stephanie Soebbing, over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. All right, until next time, happy quilting.